Hello everybody, and welcome to the second half of my retrospective on the bosses of the Paper Mario franchise. How will your favorite boss place on the list? I don't really care, so I guess I'll just have to care enough for the both of us. Anyway, this is the top 15. While I really don't have strong feelings one way or the other about Francis as a boss, or even him as a character, I absolutely loved the Bitlands level, and without Francis, you wouldn't have traveled through them. This level is a really clever blend of the old and the new, being a callback to games of yesteryear while still doing its own thing. It has a great look, it's designed well, and was just fun to go through. Also, that conversation between Peach and Francis is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. It isn't really fair to have this stuff warrant Francis himself being so high on the list, which is why he's only at number 15. I think when we first heard of Mimi, Count Bleck's shape-shifting minion, I think one thing was on all of our minds. What does Mimi really look like? But then it turns out that she was just a little girl. But then, throughout Chapter 2, Mimi proved that she has a very dark and evil character. Not only did she systematically enslave a shocking number of people, but then the scene happens. You probably know all about it, but I'll play it anyway if you somehow haven't heard of it. I'll definitely give Mimi some credit for being a genuinely disturbing character. She really is like a villain in a horror movie, and that's played up wonderfully in her appearances. Now how about we end the Nightmare Fuel and move on to the next boss? In terms of writing, Bonechill is a very good villain. He creates an aura of menace very well with just a few lines. I also really love the character design of this thing. Everything about it looks unnatural, from the face to the gaunt skeletal frame, to the fact that it's growing out of a pot wheelbarrow cannon thing. The only problem is that this boss is way too easy, even by Super Paper Mario standards. If you use Luigi, it will die in 15 seconds flat. This kinda takes away from the whole supreme monster of the underworld thing. I mean, after all, a boss that is too easy is just as bad as a boss that is too hard. Most of the chapter bosses in Paper Mario Sticker Star aren't really all that developed or interesting. That is, except for this one. Mr. Blizzard has something many other bosses don't. A motivation. He wants you to be winner forever because he doesn't want to melt. It's a simple motivation, for sure, but it's still miles above having no motive at all. It's these things that add so much more to a character than he's just a monster or he's just crazy. Not to mention that the battle itself is very well done. The giant monster turns into something small and weak. When he loses, he apologizes for the suffering he's caused, and you actually feel sorry for him. Well played, Sticker Star, well played. The 6th chapter of the 1,000-Year Door is my favorite chapter in all of these games. It has everything, and I could go back to it a million times. Not to mention, the Smorg boss battle was a great way to top it all. Not only do you fight the boss battle on top of a moving train, This is just an interesting concept. Thousands of little creatures that are very weak on their own banding together to make a rather formidable enemy. I also like the touch of ambiguity. Not only is it never made clear what Smorg is or where it came from, it's not even sure if Beldam sent Smorg to kill you or if it was just something you stumbled upon. Either way, this was an awesome way to end our 3 days of excess. When it comes to bosses, these games make excellent first impressions. All 4 of these games have good first bosses, and Hooktail is definitely one of them. The boss battle with her is built up big time. You hear about Hooktail, you briefly see Hooktail, and the entire beginning of the game is building up to your showdown. This is awesome. You are fighting a giant killer fire-breathing dragon right off the bat. Things get even more frantic and cool when she literally breaks the 4th wall. Well, the 4th wall in the context of this weird stage battle dimension thing. This is an incredibly well executed and memorable boss. And yet, she is only at number 10. The Crystal King is a very creative idea for a villain. Normally, ice-themed bosses, and especially ice-themed levels, annoy me to no end, but this level and boss did things right. I love the theme of mirrors, something that has amazing potential when it comes to both puzzles and art. But I think we all know the real reason why he is ranked this high. That music. The music for the Crystal King battle is the best music in the entire series. I can just see myself listening to it in my car or something. Music like this makes an already strong boss something to look forward to and remember fondly. I've always found calm, collected villains much more interesting than over-the-top villains or comedic villains. Things get especially interesting when it's revealed that under that calm facade is a complete psycho. For example, that's why Xanth was so memorable. This is also why Grodus is so memorable. He really does come off as a threatening presence, and that's before you even personally meet him. The things he does are pretty dark for a kid's game, actually, and that's often a good thing. Grodus is a memorable villain, a memorable psycho, and a memorable boss battle. But he should have quit when he wasn't ahead. I refuse to apologize for that. It's only fitting that the very first boss of the series was a home run. The Koopa Bros are a lot like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles if they were less distinct from each other and more hilariously incompetent. Not only are they really funny, this boss battle is tons of fun. First there's the ridiculous Bowser robot, then there's the part where the 4 fight you together. I don't really have a set guide for how good a boss is, but one big part of it is how much fun it is to fight them. And in that respect, the Koopa Bros definitely deserve number 7. This is one boss in Sticker Star that genuinely surprised me. Considering how little presence Bowser himself had during the rest of the game, I expected to be underwhelmed. Thankfully, I was 100% wrong. This is one of the best final bosses in the series. It's long and difficult with multiple parts, each having its own weaknesses and strengths. You have to have a plan and you need to be packing heat if you want to win. And then there's the end part of the battle. In a quite touching moment, Kirsty, your only companion throughout this entire journey, sacrifices her life so that you can win the fight. Sticker Star may have its flaws, but the ending is definitely not one of them. It plays well, it's emotionally charged, and it was extremely satisfying. I loved every minute of it. The Shadow Queen is definitely the hardest mandatory boss in the entire series, and that is definitely saying something. Also, even by final battle standards, this goes on for a while. But that doesn't matter because this is the best ending in the series. First off, the Shadow Queen is one of the best villains. She's the ultimate evil, badness incarnate. She wants to rule everything and explodes Grodus, the person who resurrected her, with a thought. She's an incredibly dark character, darker than Dementio, Grodus, or even Mimi, because there is no humanity in her. In a totally expected twist, the ultimate power of evil proves somewhat hard to kill. She's a status ailments, healing, and insane attack power, not to mention unbelievably high HP. Plus, killing the Shadow Queen means killing Peach. The battle is long, hard, and emotional, but when you win, there is a feeling of triumph that is hard to top in a video game. As good as the writing in the 1000-Year Door is, the writing in Super Paper Mario is still better, mostly due to Count Bleck. It's funny how the over-the-top crazy villain who talks in the third person ends up being the most layered and developed villain the series has ever given us. Between chapters, we see text that tells us the story of two characters called Blumiere and Timpani, who fall in love but can't be together because they're from different walks of life. Eventually, Timpani seems to die at the hand of Blumiere's father, and Blumiere goes crazy. It's also made pretty clear that Blumiere and Timpani are really Count Bleck and your guy Tippy, who doesn't remember her past life. So, because he thought that Timpani was dead, he decided to just destroy the world that took her away from him. But by the time either of them figure this out, it's too late. It's a truly tragic tale of love and loss with two very well written characters. You really feel the pain and longing coming from both of them. This is a surprisingly complex, thought-provoking, dark, and adult storyline for a kid's game. Let me tell you, that image of Blumiere and Timpani finally reunited is one of the most satisfying things you will ever see. And yet, shockingly enough, this boss still doesn't make the podium. The fight with General Guy is probably some of the most fun you will ever have fighting a boss in the series. First off, the music is wonderful. Paper Mario always seems to deliver in the music category. Fittingly enough, the fight with General Guy plays out a lot like that of an actual military battle. He sends out sentries to fight you, replacing them as they fall until eventually you face him head on. I just love how this whole battle seems to have a touch of childlike imagination. It's really like you're fighting toys. This is an incredibly creative and fun boss. I look forward to this battle every time. I'm always sad to see it end. In all 4 games, World 5 is a jungle/wilderness level, and, as you might recall, the other 3 bosses all sucked the rings off of toilets. That is, except for the 1000-Year Door with Cortez, the runner-up for the best Paper Mario boss ever. The fight itself is very creative and engaging. It does a really good job of blending a pirate battle with a ghost battle. 2 great tastes that go great together. You got floating swords, ghostly flames, and the character that is made to directly personify the skull and crossbones symbol. It excites my inner little boy every time. But the best part comes after the battle. He thought you came to steal all of his treasure, but you instead just came for the crystal star. And then he basically says, no joke, sure, take it. What does one gem matter to me anyway? I'm loaded forever. For some reason, I find that extremely hilarious. Cortez actually turns out to be a good guy. Not only does he let you have the crystal star, he helps you defeat Lord Crump and even gives you rides from Rogueport to Keelhaul Key. Cortez is not only a good boss, but also a good character, with a shocking amount of decency and humanity for an undead pirate abomination. In fact, if it weren't for the number 1, he would have been the best out of all of them. Which brings us to our gold medalist. As good as a lot of these other bosses were, they all felt kind of small. Even the huge ones were still contained by a stage, or a platform, or a moderately small room. That is not the case with Fracktail. Suddenly this game becomes Shadow of the Colossus, and it is absolutely epic. Like Cortez, Fracktail started out as a nice guy, and he totally intended to give you the second pure heart. But then, Bonechill comes in and does what he does best, make things harder for you. And then there's this absolutely hilarious scene where the computer that is Fracktail crashes, and then this boss battle begins. This fight has really got some weight to it. You have to climb onto its back and throw pieces of the creature at its weak spot. This is just fun to do. This boss battle is one of the greatest moments in this series. It's a true spectacle, a great way to kick off an absolutely superb game, and it is without a doubt the best Paper Mario boss battle ever. See you next time on the show with no name.